Who were the most surprising WNBL free agency moves? What is the fiercest rivalry in the league? And who are our picks to take home the 2022 WNBL championship? It's part 2 of our WNBL preview with Hayley Wildes of the Pick and Roll Australia. Locked on Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, hi, hello everyone, and happy Wednesday. You are Locked On to Women's Basketball. I'm Isabel Rodriguez. I'm a contributing writer at The Next. I write our twice-weekly newsletter, The Morning Post-Up, which covers the happenings of women's basketball all around the world. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. On today's show, we're wrapping up our preview of the new WNBL season. The WNBL is the Professional Women's Basketball League in Australia. And if you didn't catch it, we take you through all the basics in part 1 of this preview, which dropped yesterday. Today, we're going to go through the final 4 teams in the league, highlight some of the players we're most excited about, go over the most surprising parts of free agency, go over our key games circled on our calendar, and give you our picks to win it all. But now, let's head over and talk about Southside and Sydney. So next, we're moving on to the Southside Flyers. The Southside Flyers made quite the splash when they brought back Lauren Jackson out from retirement, right back out of the FIBA World Cup, where she made a huge splash, made a ton of noise, and is bringing a lot of attention to this little old club that has got a lot going on. So they are at a new home court at the State Basketball Center, which is quite nice, I can imagine. And Sarah Blickavs is back. A couple of younger players right out of the Gems are going to be joining them, which is super exciting. I always love watching some younger players, and they always seem to be a little bit more creative and kind of gutsy, so that'll be fun. And then obviously Lauren Jackson is going to be here, and that presence is going to be, I think, what brings those younger players back down to earth, and really helps them kind of get accustomed to what's going on.
Yeah, I think the Flyers, the Flyers, they're obviously they were the champions in 2020 when we had the bubble season, and then last year it didn't work out for them. Every other team except for Bendigo had imports, and Southside went without imports, and it didn't work for them, quite frankly, and they only won, I think it was 4 or 5 games, but they've come right back and made the biggest splash of all with Lauren Jackson. And then just on the eve of the season, they announced Kayla Thornton as their import. So their front court is incredible. So I don't know. I think they might just have the best front court in the league, but their guard depth is a bit questionable. They've only sort of got 3 guards on the roster. So they're going to have to, those minutes to those players are going to be high. And I don't know, maybe they will add another point guard or a guard at least to their roster within the season. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go in that guard situation.
Yeah, definitely. I'm also curious just to see who some of these new faces, whether anyone can really make that sort of a jump and kind of use the opportunity to make a name for themselves and kind of establish that. So I think it'll be kind of an interesting race at the beginning of the season to see who's going to take up that primary guard spot, especially at the point guard. I think that'll be particularly interesting because who wouldn't want to be a point guard with Lauren Jackson?
Yeah, it's a good bailout option as well. Like if the offense isn't running quite as smoothly, just lob it into Lauren Jackson and let her go to work. Also Abby Bishop as well, who is incredible still. So they've got their front court's just loaded. So I think they'll be able to fight through that sort of guard depth issue. But yeah, their front court's incredible.
Definitely. It kind of reminds me a little bit of how the Connecticut Sun put things together with kind of just a really massive roster with a lot of height, a lot of really good depth at the post position and kind of in the paint. And then they struggled a little bit with those guards for a little while, but eventually were able to find some, especially I think Courtney Williams kind of figured it out in the last half of the season and really shined during the playoffs. So I'm curious to see if we see something similar here where one guard kind of takes a little bit longer to figure it out and then it clicks and then all of a sudden we see some really gorgeous backdoor cuts or something, and it'll be great.
But their main two guards, Rochi and Cole, they're both. If you want to watch two guards play together, those two are two of the quickest guards in the league, and it's incredible to watch those two. They'll drive all day, and they're so quick. So if you want to watch two players, if you like quick players, watch those two.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, and right on over to the Sydney Flames, which is our next team. Shyla Heel and her teammate Tiana. Oh boy, another last name. Mangakanya, yeah. They got run together in the NBL 1, which is the semi-pro league, which I'm so jealous that there is a semi-pro league. Because what I would
And it's a good league. It is a good league, yeah.
And it is an excellent league. I think there was one WNBA player who was planning to play there and then moved somewhere else, and just the fact that somebody was considering doing that is pretty crazy. So that's all you need to know about the
Lauren
NBL
Jackson.
1.
And that's when Jackson started coming back, so it's not bad.
Exactly. It's all that you could really want. And so those two got some run together in that league, which again I think is something to look out for, is just players who've already been able to play together for a little while. They signed Jocelyn Willoughby, New York Liberty legend, and Hannah, whose last name, Hannah Schwerin, I think is how you pronounce it. And then again, out of the NBL 1, Kalani Purcell, who was with New Zealand at the 3x3 Commonwealth Games, and I loved her. She was excellent. She's really fast on her feet. Again, the 3x3, I think, brings an element of just really fast decision-making that brings another level to people's games. I mean, we've seen it already a little bit with Lexi Hull, like between her at the beginning of the U23 World Cup to the end of the U23 World Cup, the way she was able to make decisions was completely different. So I'm so excited to see whether she can bring kind of that element of like quick transition play into the Sydney Flames roster, which is just full of excellent, fun things. So what are your main thoughts with Sydney?
Yeah, I think that last year was for them a bad season, and they're looking to bounce back. And they got their imports wrong. Well, they had some import issues and got those wrong. So this year they've obviously gone out and got Willoughby, which is hard to go wrong with. So I'm looking forward to seeing her play more. Obviously, her last couple of years, it's been a struggle for her. So I think it'll be exciting to see her back on the court full time, and that'll be great. And Shyla Hill, she wants to get back in the WNBA. So this is her season to really show it in the WNBL, and I think she's ready. Obviously, not making the Opals team for that home World Cup would have hurt. So I think she'll be ready to prove that she's ready to be the next Opals point guard and also back into the WNBA.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think with Willoughby, it's going to be a really good warm-up season for her coming back to the Liberty, and so I think she's really going to take this seriously, which is always what you want from your import players, is just people who are bought in and ready to give it their 100%. And so I'm really interested to see how it goes. I mean, there's not really much you could lose. So it'll be interesting to see what risks they take, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Coming up next, we'll walk through what's going on with the Townsville Fire and the UC Capitals. But first, BetOnline.net is your number one source for betting on football and the start of the new college basketball season. I'm not a betting person myself, but I understand the value it holds as we continue to grow the women's basketball space. There's certainly always room to grow there, and that's where BetOnline comes in. Find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on your favorite games and events, including college football, NFL, MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. There's truly something there for everyone, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter most to the biggest stories in sports, go behind the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, and then our last two, which we'll kind of quick fire here because there aren't a ton of headlines, but just some things to hit on. The Townsville Fire are bringing in Tiana Hawkins and Carly Samuelson. They've got some new faces, but mostly keeping that core together. And Samuelson and Hawkins will bring in a level, I think, just fun that will be really exciting to see on that team. Both of those players are beloved by their teammates. So those are some really exciting adds for them, I think.
Yeah, and I think they've got two great guards. And Steph Reed is close to make. She's sort of a fringe Opals player as well, and she's a defender first, and she will. If you've been guarded by her on the perimeter, you're in for a rough night. She just does not stop. She's sort of like Christy Wallace in that way. They love to defend, and it's awesome to see that. And she made the Opals sort of squads just, and she's getting there now. So I think she'll be in for a big season, sort of prove that she's almost. There's so many guards that are trying to get those spots for the Opals, and as I say, she's also trying to get into that roster. So I think it's a season for her to prove that as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing her play too.
Absolutely. It is so interesting how much of a tryout the WNBL really is for the Opals, because for Team USA, it's very much like a Cheryl Reeve gets to pick from the pot of just so much. But for this, it's really they take it seriously on both a team level and also an individual level, which I think brings some really interesting kind of like some interesting fire, and players can get really into it. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be fun.
Definitely. All right. And to round out our teams, the last one, but certainly not the least, are the UC Capitals. We've got another new head coach, Kristen Veal, and they've signed Ray Burrell, who missed basically all of the WNBA season with a pretty significant knee injury. So seeing her back, and again, I think this will be a good warm-up round for her before she heads back to the WNBA. And so again, another player who I expect to see a lot from here. Unfortunately, not able to keep Brittany Sykes, which is a pretty tough loss. She's out playing with Sopron, which is it's been very interesting. And then also you've got Jade Melbourne and Alex Button, both of which I'm very excited to see develop this season. So final takes on the UC Capitals.
Just Jade Melbourne, like that's the story for them. I'm going to say it again, she's the future Opals point guard, but there's a lot. I feel like I've said that a lot, but she was basically the last cut for the Opals. She was close to making that World Cup team, and she's so young still, but she is just so much fun to watch, and the way she plays the game, she's just always smiling, always positive, whether she's on the bench or playing. Her sort of her outlook is the same, and she wants to be there for her teammates, and she's just full of energy. You'll never see her tired. She's just always ready to go, and the way she plays the game is just so fun that I think if there's a player you want to watch, and especially for Seattle Storm fans, which they've already picked her, so if you want to watch a player in the WNBL that's going to be in the WNBA soon, it's Jade Melbourne. And if you want to watch her, just make sure you're watching those Caps games, and she's going to be so much fun to watch.
Oh man, I have a really good feeling about her, especially with her odds of making the WNBA. She's in the perfect place, I think. The Storm 100%. right out of losing Sue Bird. There's kind of a really intense vacuum for that point guard spot, given that how dominant Sue was for so long in Seattle. And so I think this is her shot. This is her shot to prove that she can be that go-to point guard and then bring that confidence over to Seattle for the next WNBA season. So all good things to come from one Jade Melbourne, which I'm very excited for. All right, so now that we've run through all of our teams, we're going to talk some key matchups and rivalries, which are always fun. Just a quick hop and skip through free agency, and then our picks to win it all. All right, so to close things out, we're going to first talk about some key matchups and rivalries that you're looking forward to and what you're circling on your calendar for the WNBL season.
Yeah, so I think the matchup that everyone's sort of waiting to see is Southside versus the Melbourne Boomers, and that's coming up very early in the season. So, and the front, both teams have great front court depth, and it's going to be great to see. And Lauren Jackson versus Kayla George is going to be so much fun. They've been teammates on the Opals, and now they're going to be playing against each other again. And I think Kayla George is going to be up for that battle, but we also know Lauren Jackson is going to be up for that battle. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think that game is the one that everyone's got penciled in early in the season. But then there's just matchups all over. So I think the Steph Reed versus Christy Wallace matchup when Townsville and Melbourne play is going to be fun. Like those two, they won't give each other a possession off. They're going to be at each other's throats, and it's going to be so much fun. And then I think the Sammy Whitcomb versus Steph Talbot matchup when Perth and Adelaide play, they're both massive competitors, and I think the friendship will be put aside when they enter the court, and they're going to be they won't be matched up on each other necessarily the whole game, but they'll be both leading their teams, and it's going to be a great matchup to see.
Absolutely. It'll be fun to see what their total points are by the end of that.
Yeah, for sure.
So just because I know our Jen Hatfield is a really into family rivalries, I see one game that you've listed here that's got a pair of sisters that are going to be going head to head. So if you could tell us a little bit about that matchup. I'd love to hear
the Frolling sisters, and they also have two brothers that play in the NBL, the men's competition. And so in Melbourne and Adelaide and Brisbane. So they battle it out against each other, and then the sisters battle it out as well. So it's going to be great to see. And Alicia's made the move to Bendigo. So when Bendigo play Sydney, it's going to be on. Yeah. So and Keely's sort of really close to being in the Opals. She's she's also a fringe Opals player, and when those two get on the court, they're both massive competitors. So the sisterhood is definitely put aside, and they'll be at each other's throats all night.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That'll be a fun one, I think, just for fun. All right. And then I think we'll go into some just quick little dips into free agency and what you saw were the most interesting bits from free agency, who were the most interesting moves that you saw, and maybe what was one that really surprised you or that took you kind of by surprise?
Well, I think a big one for Bendigo, obviously they've struggled the last couple of years, was getting Kelsey Griffin back. She won some championships with Bendigo years ago, and now she's back, and she's still a great player. She was incredible in the WNBL last year for Canberra, and she may be getting older, but she's going to be great for Bendigo, I think, who obviously have Hayley, and so I think that's a massive get for Bendigo, and I think they'll be knocking on the door of finals this year. I think they can if they really have a good season. So I think they'll be thereabouts. And then obviously Tiana for Sydney. It'll be great to see her back in Australia. She's been away for so long. Obviously she's played NBL 1 and I think she's ready to go. And her playmaking is incredible. Some of the passes she can make are just, even her teammates are like, how did you pass that to me? You can just see on their faces that they're shocked that she's able to get the ball to them. So for her teammates, they've just got to be ready to catch anything at any time, and then she'll do the work for them.
Oh, it's those point guards that really just take you by surprise that I love. Yeah. I think that's what got everyone so in love with Marie Johannes was just the way that she was 100%. Able to just absolutely come out of nowhere. And so if that's something that you really enjoy, definitely keep an eye out for Tiana.
Yeah,
definitely do.
For sure. For sure.
All right.
And then I think
I
think a big one was Melbourne getting Christy Wallace to go across from the other side of Melbourne. So I think she was sixth woman of the year last year for Southside, and I think she's just got so much better since last season playing in the WNBA and then in the World Cup. So I think she's going to be a massive get for Melbourne. To replace Lindsay Allen with Christy Wallace is unreal. It's you're not really losing too much, I don't think, with getting Christy Wallace in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of sometimes Lindsay Allen is one of those players that sometimes it's easy to, she does everything so quietly that sometimes you don't even notice. She's put up like 15 points and like 6 assists and you're like, whoa, I didn't even see what's going on. And she was that way for Minnesota for this year. And so I think like having Christy there to kind of take over some of that role, it'll be interesting to see how she changes that role and how she makes it her own and defines it for herself. So lots of good things to look forward to from Christy Wallace. All right, so here's the final question that everybody wants to know so that everybody can kind of maybe steal your answer or at least have something to say if someone were to ask them who they think is going to win the WNBL championship. Who is your preseason favorite? Who do you think is going to win the title? The big, easy question, the $1 million question, as they say.
I would say it's probably not worth stealing because I've not been right in previous seasons, but I'll go for it anyway. My preseason favourite is definitely the Melbourne Boomers. They're loaded up again. But it's hard to repeat. So I feel like that does add another layer to their season, trying to get back to that mountain again and every team's going to be coming at you every night with their best shot when you are the defending champions. So it's definitely not going to be easy. It's not a shoe-in by any means, and so many teams have good depth. So it's going to be exciting to see. But I think it is Melbourne's to win or lose. And then also, Southside are going to be thereabouts, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think definitely my safe pick would be Melbourne. I mean, it's, again, we've talked about it before, but it's really hard to beat just the amount of depth that they've put together on this roster compared to everybody else. I think like their bench will be really hard to deal with. So that sure. I think will set them apart from most other teams. But my sleeper pick, I think, is going to be Perth. I feel really good about Sammy Wickham and Amy Atwell. I'm really excited to see what those two bring together. And you've made me really excited about some guards that I think they can get it together. And if they can really make that click, then I think they have a good shot at least making the final. So that's going to be my pick.
Having Sammy Whitcomb run the show is always a good thing. So I think they're always, they're definitely there to surprise it. And I think they can do that.
Absolutely. Do you have a sleeper pick or somebody that you think will come out of the woodwork and surprise folks?
I do like Adelaide, obviously Steph Talbot. And if Bell can really step up and be a real sort of impact player as a forward, I feel like she's going to be there too. So it'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely. All right. So where can you watch the WNBL? Great question. We can answer that. Outside of Australia, you can watch it on the FIBA YouTube channel, which is where you can watch most overseas leagues, either the FIBA YouTube channel or the EuroLeague YouTube channel or whatever. Chances are it's streaming on YouTube for free. So go and watch it. If you're in Australia, hello. You can watch the WNBL on ESPN or 9 Now, which is super exciting. They're going to be splitting the schedule this year, and streaming is indicated on the league schedule. Thank you for listening to Locked On Women's Basketball, everybody. Hayley, where can everybody find your work and check in with you after this?
So I write for the Pick and Roll, which we focus on Australian basketball all over the world. So men, women in Australia, America, Europe, China, wherever they're playing, we'll be sort of focusing on those players. And I only write about women's basketball. So if you want anything Australian women's basketball, just come find me on the Pick and Roll or on Twitter at Wildes_Hayley. And I'm happy to chat women's basketball all day long. So always happy to chat about it.
Amazing. You can find me at Isabel Barroso 78 on Twitter. I'm there almost 23 hours out of every day. And like I mentioned before, I write the Morning Post Up, which is a twice weekly free newsletter from The Next. We cover everything women's basketball all around the world, twice a week, right to your inbox. And you can subscribe at thenexthoops.com. All right. Thanks for joining us, Hayley, and hopefully we'll have you back on sometime soon to chat more about the WNBL and all of the great things that come with Australian women's basketball.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every single day. For your next listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game, recaps, and the take of the day. What a take it is. This podcast is available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.